Alright, here we go. Welcome everyone to the first Offworld Trading Company match of this tournament that I've had the opportunity to cast. We're going to have Blackmagic up against Zuzani in Game 1 here today. And this is an interesting little map, let's be honest. We've got a lot of aluminum and iron spread around, but not a whole lot of water, not a whole lot of carbon either. Which means that this ice could become very important. This high water tile, which who knows, might get knocked out by the colony, although maybe they fixed it so that doesn't happen anymore, could get knocked out. That would remove most of the water from the map, honestly. There's one more high water tile, and I'm really curious. There's a really obvious spot right now, and it's right here, right? You plant expansive or robotic right in there, maybe even scientific, although I wouldn't recommend it. And you're going to be off to a tearing start. Zuzani is actually going to be the first one to pull the trigger, and he goes for robotic, allowing him to kind of absorb that debt a little bit better. He will be founding first and taking this high aluminum, high iron territory, and he will be able to immediately upgrade, as robotics have very, very cheap access to upgrades. No big surprise there. That is going to be a strong start for Zuzani, and Blackmagic is basically just going to be sitting here waiting to catch up, especially considering he cannot take this high aluminum. He's got to go to like this high aluminum. Things just get weird when your opponent founds and blocks off so many resources immediately. We can see at this point that Zuzani does have his high iron set up. He looks like he's just going for 3 steel mills with that. I'm wondering if he's going to take another iron. No, he is not. He is going to... Okay, this is another metal mine. Good stuff, good stuff. I was worried this was a steel mill for a moment, but it's not. We're all okay. And he's going to be set up just fine to just be pumping out steel and aluminum, pushing on toward HQ level 3 very, very easily for him. So he is well set up to move into the rest of this game. Whereas Blackmagic, he is lagging behind, but that is to be expected. He does have an extra claim now that he's managed to push to HQ level 2, and he's going to use his Scavenger advantage where he does not have to make steel to very quickly secure the most valuable water tile on the map. I would not be surprised if he also goes to secure some silicon, which he is going to do. And it should be noted that he is playing Scavenger on a low carbon map, so he is going to have access to the best carbon available, which could make a bit of a difference as we move into the late game. Zuzani might not be able to make electronics as easily as he would like. Blackmagic definitely going to have a lot more control over those resources. So it'll be interesting to see how all that goes down. At this point, we're basically just hanging out, waiting. Zuzani's probably going to hit HQ level 3 before Blackmagic does. He definitely should be able to do that, given that he is a robotic player. Zuzani is also, it should be noted, driving up the glass price artificially right now. He has sold down a lot of stuff. He bought glass. Doesn't look like it had any real impact on Blackmagic, as he didn't make any glass purchases during that kind of inflation bubble period. But it is something Zuzani is trying to do as he pushes for the upgrade. I think I would like to see him push one way or the other, worry about your opponent's resources, or head to an upgrade. He was kind of split there for a little while. But finally, he has just made the upgrade happen, and now he's going to be expanding out. Looks like he's going to take some silicon right now, is what I imagine he's headed toward. Maybe this tile right here. Yep, that's where he's headed, this very high silicon. That is going to cost him a lot of power. Should also be noted, there's a solar flare going on right now, and Zuzani is buying up resources, indicating he wants to build a solar panel. That might be a really nice play for him in the moment. Neither of these players with a particularly excessive amount of debt at this point, but getting a hold of this solar flare and getting that benefit from that power price is going to be kind of a big deal. Whereas Blackmagic, he doesn't really have access to that right now. He's just making a wind turbine. He doesn't want to worry about silicon, but he will be the one to make the profit off of these solar panels from the silicon being driven up. So that is worth noting. Pirates are available this game. We haven't really talked black market a whole lot, but it should be noted that Pirates, EMP, Power Surge, Network Virus, Underground Nuke, Dynamite Mutiny, and Goon Squad are all available. We're talking a very powerful set of black market items this game that are going to be available to Blackmagic as a Scavenger player, and that could play a big role in how this game ends up playing out. We already see a Power Surge onto the solar panels during the solar flare. This isn't going to really take away a whole lot of money from Zuzani, aka Deathtacticus, in the early phase of this game. However, it is going to go ahead and stack up debt, and it gives Blackmagic kind of the opportunity to get some wind turbines down, and you can also see that Zuzani had his solar panels knocked out mostly during that solar flare while they were up. So even though some of this freeze is happening during night, it did manage to prevent any major benefit from coming from that solar flare. So that was a nice play by Blackmagic, I think. He has managed to hit HQ level 3 at this point. As we can see, Blackmagic has gone ahead and secured an additional water pump. So one has to imagine he's going to be wanting to move into those water resources very soon. However, you can see this standard scavenger problem has come about. He doesn't have any triangles down here. Not a single one. None available. Like, right here is what he can do. But he's already got a carbon tile there, and that's just not going to work out because it's blocking the triangle off. It's just not going to happen. So a lot of water coming in for Blackmagic. Some of this may have been in response to the water shortage that we actually saw earlier come through. However, he is going to need to start using this water, get to HQ level 4, make some decent use out of it very, very quickly. Otherwise, he's just going to have a fairly large supply of a fairly useless resource for an extended period of time. Whereas Zuzani, he has managed to expand. He is actually moving straight into electronics factories. Doesn't really care, apparently, about the massive water profits that are available right now. He just wants to get into his very standard electronics resource, try and take some advantage of adjacency bonuses, but he is going to be shut down very quickly by another power surge coming out of Blackmagic, who has managed to push into a geotherm at this point. In addition to his wind turbine, that's going to be a fair amount of power going his way. Dynamite comes onto it, however. That's going to be expensive and take a fair amount of time to repair. Not too far away from the base, but not really what you're looking for. And more importantly, that just kind of, it keeps this power price moving upwards, so both players are just going to be taking on more and more and more debt, but especially Zuzani here is going to be taking on all kinds of debt unless he can secure some significant source of power before too long. Already up to that 78,000 right now. Network virus comes down. That is going to be slamming into these steel mills and iron mines. That's an interesting choice. I'm not sure really how I feel about it. I don't know if that's going to get a whole lot done. You can see that the initial network virus landed here on a goon squad, triggered defended, which is kind of a nice play if you want a power surge afterward, but instead a network virus coming down. That doesn't seem like it'll have too much of an impact here, as Zuzani had more than enough iron to kind of cover these steel mills. Blackmagic can't get any crazy tricky plays done with anything like that at this stage of the game. Perpetual motion, definitely going to be worth quite a bit of money at this point. Power very expensive. And just taking on a little bit of debt now to prevent a lot of debt later could be a very nice play for these players. You can see 24,000 is what Blackmagic has actually pushed Perpetual Motion up to. That is an expensive Perpetual Motion, but it could very well pan out this game. Also lets him start selling power immediately. All that power getting sold now, $170 a piece. He should be able to fairly quickly pay off the debt that he received for getting that patent. We'll just have to see what he can make happen. I am really concerned about Blackmagic at this point. As you can see, he's got like single tile, 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 and then like a pair over here that isn't even functioning on the resources. He's just moving into more and more power, considering that silicon price was dead and the water price was also dead. It's a reasonable play to make, and when day comes, he's going to crash that power price pretty hard. But I'm very concerned about the fact that he hasn't hit HQ level 4 yet. He never used the fact that he had all those water tiles available to him for so long. Finally, he makes it happen. I want to see reactors down yesterday at this point. Like, desperately want it. Looks like right now we're going to have another wind turbine, and I'm concerned about that because already Blackmagic has said, I'm not consuming all that much power. And now he's just flooding the market. Right now it's 900 a second, but he's not making any money off this. All he's managing to do is pay off debt. He's going to have to find a way to actually push into the late game to get any kind of advantage off this play whatsoever. Zuzani, interestingly enough, maybe having not quite yet spotted the sheer amount of power that's going to be flooding into the market. Maybe he doesn't care and he just wants to get what he can while he can. You can see the power price dropping, but not super rapidly. Maybe he'll be able to get just a little bit of debt payment out with these solar panels, but I am a little bit concerned about just how much both of these players have committed into this. Finally, we see some water-based resources popping down over here with farms for Zuzani and reactors for Blackmagic. Look at how profitable these things are going to be once all this adjacency bonuses have started playing. $100 a piece from these farms, whereas up here, if these reactors were running $120 a piece, how crazy is that? And these players, neither of them going into those very early, they just become more and more and more valuable all game long. Big freeze over here, I do want to point out, onto these solar panels, these electronics factories. Blackmagic trying to play that power game, but once again, it hasn't actually made him any money just yet. None whatsoever. And he's still at like 40,000 debt, nowhere close to it. Zuzani, on the other hand, he's up at that 132,000 debt. He just keeps getting more and more and more and more and more as time goes on. And if this power price crashes, he might find himself in a bit of an awkward spot trying to pay that down. A single hologram coming out. Could have some amount of use here. Definitely questionable thing in 1v1. A lot of the time, if your opponent's paying attention, the hologram is not going to get as much work done in something like an FFA with 6 or 8 players in it, because everybody can just keep a very careful eye out and kind of guess what's going on despite a hologram. So it is going to be Zuzani who takes that. That's just going to stack more and more onto his debt. You can see he's already in that C rating, and that is going to hurt when noon rolls around and that interest rate ticks. But he does have a hologram available. It'd be interesting to see. It looks like it's going to drop right here underneath his only goon squad at the moment. And I would not be too surprised if we just saw him very quickly heading to an off-world market, as is standard in 1v1 games these days. But no, it's actually just going to be a glass furnace coming down for the time being. Decides the electronics factories really aren't doing it for him. Makes a whole lot of sense to me. I don't think those were a great decision right from the very start. Blackmagic has caught up to HQ level 5. He has 5 claims available. Zuzani down to 0. He is pretty much set with the tiles he is going to have this game, unless an auction comes out or extra claims are distributed to each of these 2 players. Also worth noting, he does have that C bond rating still. A lot of debt being accrued overnight. While his solar panels were off, up to 155,000 compared to 31,000. If Blackmagic can hold on and ride all this out, this debt may give him enough of an advantage to actually get something done, but I am very concerned about the fact that it looks like Zuzani is all set with this off-world market. It has started, and he is going to be ready to go with it very easily. It is protected by a goon squad. It is going to stay that way for a long time, pretty standard in a 1v1. Now, without access to slowdown strikes, it's very difficult to attack a single off-world market that can so easily be protected by a goon squad. And in fact, Zuzani is going to toss out an EMP on top of Blackmagic. That is going to be a nice freeze effect. As you can see, he's kind of missing the central part of it. It's not really doing a whole lot of work, but it is just a nice general spread, slowing Blackmagic down, preventing him from really doing a whole lot about this particular tile. However, we can see that an underground nuke was triggered on this goon squad. Blackmagic paying attention, he knows what's up. He knows that's going to be an off-world market under a hologram right there. You can always kind of expect that when you see just an empty, invisible tile going on in your opponent's territory. So, nice to see Blackmagic going ahead and picking up on that. And yeah, there's no way that he would be building another solar panel, right? It's just very, very unlikely situation. However, this tile is defended. 26 more seconds. It's got another goon squad. Goon squads are only cost about 16,000 right now for Zuzani, so I don't see what he's going to be able to do about this off-world market in time. It feels like he would have needed to find some way to attack or to develop his own off-world market already, and I'm very concerned about Blackmagic at this point. When you fall behind in the off-world market race, and off-worlds are selling something for 583 apiece, effectively, that's just... yeah, that's not a spot you ever want to be in a 1v1, racing from behind. A hacker ray does come down from Blackmagic, which I think is an interesting play, but I think it would have been a far better one a good 5-6 minutes ago, so he could actually have a hack out already. I think if he had a hack on fuel right now, he just began dumping money into that, had a hack on carbon right now, was dumping money into that, kind of punishing his opponent's electronics factories, or even just do something really silly and hack water. Don't worry about the fact that you've got electrolysis reactors down. Maybe don't put so many down. Hack water, punish your opponent in that fashion. But right now, you can see Zuzani's got his launches running. One of them just finished up. Still defending this tile. Still has the goon squad available. Has multiple mutinies available to go ahead and throw down on the off-world in case a mutiny ever does land. And he is to the point where he can force Blackmagic to start defending himself. And I think this hacker ray is just going to be too little, too late. Carbon shortage is coming out, but Blackmagic needs his money in order to defend himself against these off-world launches very, very soon. You can tell he's at that 50% for killing Zuzani because he only needs to secure 6 stocks. That's really not all that hard to do. However, Zuzani should be able to defend himself, and on top of that, if you're not buying your opponent's stock, their debt really isn't doing a whole lot of harm to them until they hit that D range, which we see Zuzani is in at this point. But it all just feels like he's managed to hold on just long enough to get that Offworld online. He hasn't been punished very hard for his debt yet. It doesn't look like he is going to be punished very hard for his debt. And even though he can't kill Blackmagic right away, he is still set up very, very well to go ahead and move into that late game, purely from the fact that he has an Offworld market constructed. Now, he may have to actually end up worrying about his debt. Blackmagic has secured 5 of his own stock. He is going to force a long game here. And because of that, Zuzani, he is going to start having this Offworld knocked down by Dynamite any moment, I would imagine, because he is no longer able to purchase goon squads because of his D debt rating. That's where it'll really come back to bite him, if it does at all. Shortage on carbon is coming in. We can see Blackmagic has 738 of that secured at an already $90 price. We're going to have to see exactly how that pans out. Almost let Slant Drilling go for 5,000. That's not the kind of thing you want to see when your opponent could really stand to like secure some extra tiles with maybe some triangles. I don't know if he could get a hold of any more claims this game, but it is the kind of thing to watch out for. Alright. People not really sure what they want to do with Slant Drilling. I do have to point out, I really think that founding in this hole as a scavenger is something you really have to be careful for and careful not to do. Worth noting that there are mutinies available on these reactors now that have been utilized, so those aren't going to be useful for defending this Offworld market. Definitely something Blackmagic should note, and a Dynamite finally does land. But seriously, there are no triangles in this hole. You got to be real careful when you're founding in a hole like this. Even just scooting over a little bit could have been a really big boost to Blackmagic's economy. He wouldn't have to ship out just to get access to a triangle this game. Definitely something to watch out for.
The black market is
alright. Zuzani, he has a little bit of carbon secured, but not enough to really talk about. Blackmagic still just kind of sitting there. He's maybe just going for another shortage again, having recognized this is something I have that my opponent doesn't. I can make this work. And we'll see if it pans out for him. Another thing I would love to see is water getting messed around with. Right now, kind of forcing a very, very awkward situation out of Zuzani, who chose to forego ice almost completely this game. He's got, I think, 1 tile with access to ice, and so he really doesn't have a whole lot of things he can do with water, and he is drinking it up for this food production. I really am interested to see if Blackmagic could be able to do something with this, and you can see he is actually holding on to quite a bit of water right now, having identified that he can absolutely wreck his opponent's economy. Oh, I would have loved to see a network virus go down before those buildings actually got turned off. Can you imagine the network virus tearing through all these buildings and forcing that water price higher and higher and higher along with the shortage? Could have been the most ridiculous thing ever. Would have loved to see it. However, we do have a carbon shortage coming on in. Zuzani buying into that with 170 carbon. I want to see Blackmagic punish him for that quite heavily here. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. Who's going to get the sell first? Looks like it was Blackmagic who sold off at least a little bit in time, then Zuzani. Each of the players getting a nice little boost from this particular situation here. Aluminum is the next thing that Blackmagic is playing with, although he's got a steel surplus going down right now. I'm trying to figure out what the point of having all this aluminum is at $64 a piece. I'm not really seeing it in the moment. And while Zuzani is trying to move into steel once again, the surplus is coming down, there's a freeze on it, all of this is creating a very awkward situation. And he has developed his own hacker array and is starting some iron shortages, but with only 2 iron a second, I don't know how this is going to pan out for him. I don't feel like it's going to do exactly what he wants it to. Blackmagic still in a state where he can potentially try and win this game, and on top of that, Blackmagic has finally managed to push into his own Offworld. That is the play that he decided to do, continuing to draw this game out more and more and more and more and more. Very interesting, intense game. Nobody wants the geotherm. That's a bit of a shock to me. Geotherm's so easy to establish right now. Easily transfer something like these 3 tiles out of power, which power is at $2 a piece, but still, for the future, you transfer these 3 tiles out of power, maybe into electronics, maybe into food, maybe into who cares. It's 3 extra tiles freed up at the cost of what, 4,000 dead if your opponent doesn't want to fight over it? That's nothing. Nothing in the world at all. Both hack arrays sitting idle right now, not really what you want to see. Blackmagic, he's thinking about it. He started something and canceled it out. Wow, he's actually managed to push to 2 Offworlds. That could do it for him. He's already secured 5 of his stock. He knows that's all he needs to keep himself from that majority buyout, and he's been riding that this entire game, basically. Just barely sitting on that edge. That also kind of prepared him to go ahead and transition into food. He knew that was going to become valuable. He has just enough water to kind of operate with the amount of food that he's producing right now. That's 6 water a second, barely keeping him alive. Finally, an underground nuke comes down. onto Blackmagic's water. However, slant drilling's pretty good. Does absolutely nothing to his production. Not one thing whatsoever. Hitting a low tile, I believe, and forcing it down to trace when it's benefiting from this high. So that is a wasted black market action out of Zuzani, accomplishing absolutely nothing, except that it reminded Blackmagic, hey, underground nukes are pretty good. Maybe you should attack my water. Not what you want to see out of Zuzani. I'm going to be very surprised if Blackmagic does not take this game in mere moments. He only needs 2 more stock purchases. Zuzani is selling out. He calls the GG, and it looks like Game 1, despite being way down, is going to go over to Blackmagic in this best of 3. That's impressive. That's impressive. I was not expecting that. Good work out of Blackmagic holding on that game, making good use of the hacker array to pull himself back into it despite being so late to the off-world markets. And just keeping his opponent down with that strong black market that was available to him is definitely the kind of thing you want to see out of a player who selected Scavenger. We can take a quick look at shortages and surpluses. Not actually a whole lot of things going on for Blackmagic with the hacker array, but it was just enough to give him that boost he needed. Identifying carbon as per usual as a scavenger on a low carbon map. He almost had the exclusivity of it. He had the monopoly on it. He abused that quite heavily against his opponent with multiple shortages there. Shorted electronics, which also kind of makes the off-world repairing situation very awkward for a robotic player. And then surplus steel. That's one that I was a little bit confused about. I suppose it is because a steel transition was coming in for Zuzani, and he wanted to try and make a little money off of that, but it is a very strange decision to me when you're blowing up your opponent's off-world to then surplus the steel that they're using to repair it. So it'll be interesting to, if we can find out at some point, what the thought was behind that. Zuzani never actually got a hack off, it is worth noting. Built the hacker array, never had control of it long enough to even get his iron shortage he had started off. Nothing good happening there whatsoever. We can also take one last little look at the black market before we try and head into game number 2. Zuzani with 10 black market purchases, 4 of them goon squads, and then a smattering of offensive abilities picked up, whereas Blackmagic 16, no big surprise, he was the scavenger player, 3 goon squads, and then getting very, very aggressive against his opponent with power surges, with EMPs, and just all of the strong black market that was available to him that game. It was very interesting to see. All right, guys. That's going to wrap up game number 1. Let's head on into game number 2.